we go. Hello, and welcome to another exciting edition of Utopia News. This is your host, Wind. We're looking at a special feature today. This is the second of the day. This is called Leadership Logic, and today my guest is Redbird of WARBIRDS, and today we're going to be talking about what it takes to run a successful kingdom and what it takes to be a successful leader, and what does success actually mean in Utopia. Are crowns everything? I have my guest Redbird here joining me tonight, and we're going to talk a little bit about this. How's everything with you tonight, Redbird?
Very good. Thank you for having me. Before we get started, I'd just like to say I'm a huge fan of the work you do for the community. Our kingdom loves listening to to your coverage of our wars. It's a big highlight for our players. To hear you explain on Utopia News how we're losing a war that we know we've already won. It's actually a point of pride for us, and it is a huge, a huge morale boost. So thank you for all the time and effort you put into sharing the Utopia story, making us all feel just a little bit more special while playing this game. Uto can be a rather thankless and invisible struggle sometimes, and it feels good knowing that someone is talking about you and the things you're doing and commenting on them in a professional way. So thank you for all the work you do. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for the appreciation, Redbird, and thank you so much for listening to the show. That goes out to everyone at Warbirds and everybody else that listens to the show. You're totally right. I mean, and I think that's something we all need in this community is everyone to work together and support and promote everybody. I mean, there's plenty of trolls around. We definitely don't need any more of those. I mean, I can be a bit trollish myself sometimes, but sometimes it's hard. Some people just set themselves up too perfectly, but I try my best to be a good boy.
I think we all do, and it's easier sometimes than others. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly the case that this game requires a tremendous amount of investment of time and energy, and it doesn't have the high profile that a lot of other games that require a similar investment of time and energy have. So any kind of recognition or appreciation that you get as a war leader or as a member of a warring kingdom, you know, is really really nice. It's a huge boost to morale.
Yeah, 100%. And I get that feedback a lot from several kingdoms, and lots of people like to participate and share intel. Um, I'm constantly trying to get new initiatives running and try and get some more reporters on the scene so we can cover some more of these wars. But again, thank you so much for the recognition. It does mean a lot. So without further ado, I mean, let's get started on this show. Now, I know we've done an article before about what it takes to be a successful leader. I mean, most of the time, everyone's just talking about strategies and what to do, what to build, like how to play, what army ratios to do. But no one really looks at the human or the person aspect side of this. I mean, your human resources, that's pretty much 50% of the game. Um, Having warm bodies is one thing. Having thinking warm bodies is the next greatest thing in this game. But how do you keep those people in the game, and how do you keep them motivated to keep playing age over age, especially when you do have the odd player that comes in and trolls around and kind of, I don't want to say ruins your age, but makes your age harder to accomplish the goals that you're doing. It's tough. It's tough, and a lot of new monarchs do struggle. Cell did a great job setting up his Kingdom of the Woods. I mean, they didn't have a fantastic war score. They had one of the longest wars in history a couple ages ago, and Cell has since joined another kingdom to hopefully learn a little bit how to run it a little bit better, while Woods kind of does its own thing. From my understanding, they are still operating and doing something there. But before we get too deep into that, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, Redbird?
Well, sure. First, I'd like to comment on what you said. I think that you hit the nail on the head, which is that the human aspect of this game, the personnel aspect, is easily 50% of it, and it's the 50% that we never really talk about. You're absolutely right. We love to talk about strategy. We like to theory craft, but so often what we miss is, how much this game takes out of people, how much of their lives they invest in it, and the importance of building sturdy and stable communities for people to play this game and be a part of a kingdom. One of the things I'd definitely have to say is that Um, when we when we fight wars, for example, and people are, setting alarms, they're waking up in the middle of the night, they're calling or texting each other to remind each other. That's a level of intimacy that you don't necessarily get in other online gaming communities, and that requires a very delicate hand in building a community that is both safe for people to be a part of, but also welcoming and where people they feel nurtured.
Yeah,
In
100%.
response to your direct question, just about myself, if you wanted to be more specific, um, I can tell you that I'm a teacher by profession. That's what I do for a living, and um, it definitely informs a big part of how I try to run my kingdom and how we try to create a space for people to play the game.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And now tell us a little bit about Warbirds history. How did that come about? And how do how does that kingdom continuously run and crown so often and just do so well overall, age over age? Like, what
It's a
was the
couple of
foundation behind it?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a few questions there, but just to kind of give a synopsis, going back to the beginning. Um, so I had played with my brother Smiles um, back in Civil Disobedience quite a long time ago, in the '70s, late '60s and '70s, and I had sort of hung up my hat and moved on. I was starting a new career. I was very busy, and it was in age 80, 81 at the start of the age. Smiles got in touch with me and asked me if I would come back. He was playing with the fairy circle, and he'd been asked basically to be their war leader and to try to get them a crown, and we did it. We played as a 25 fairy kingdom, and we crowned, and it was a really epic age, and it pumped me up and got me invigorated and got me interested in the game again. After the next stage, which didn't go as well, I decided I just wanted to kind of go out and see what else was going on. I hate that term, the ghetto. Um, it gives this impression that there's this whole part of Utopia that's unworthy. Where the players aren't any good and the kingdoms are disorganized. In my experience, that's not the case. What we call the ghetto is full of talented players. It's full of incredibly talented players, players that could, in many cases, easily be playing in elite kingdoms. What the ghetto, so to speak, is it's a desert of leadership. It's a desert of organization. Um, but in any event, at the start of age 83, I found myself in one of these kingdoms. No one there had ever played with anyone else ever before, so it was just a bunch of randoms thrown together. And kind of uh, without intending to, I started building. I started a Discord. I started building the kingdom. I volunteered to be monarch because no one else wanted to. Um, and slowly but surely over time, things just grew and evolved. Um, Halfway through that first stage, Smiles, who had also um, kind of taken over a ghetto kingdom, the two of us purged our inactives and merged our kingdoms together. And we decided, okay, this is just what we're going to do. We're going to try to run this together and see if we can take something from scratch and build it into an elite kingdom. And it took a lot of ages to do that. Our first our first crown was land crown in age 88. Our first age was age 83, and from age 83 to age 88, from the time of the founding of the kingdom to that first crown, we built organically. We didn't bring in a bunch of people, like we didn't start with a team. We just slowly but surely uh, nurtured the talent that was already there and brought in new people as people left. We didn't kick people out and bring in new people. We just, as people moved on, we tried to bring in players that believed in what we were doing. And since age 88, it's been a series of crowns and successes, and just gradually the thing has gotten bigger and bigger.
And that's some great feedback and, history there about warbirds and as well, what it takes to start a kingdom. I mean, I think the illusion here is that a lot of people think that they can just inject star players or what are supposedly star players, maybe because they have crowns, maybe because they have notoriety in the world. For whatever reason, they think that coming in the first stage, maybe it's their first time as monarch, even first time as war leader. They have these illusions of grandeur that, just because they have a handful of decent players or they've injected, half of another kingdom, that everything's going to run smoothly and they're going to have the perfect age. And I think that, disillusionment is realized very quickly after the first couple of wars. I've seen, leaderships crumble or people, just leaderships being fractured in some kingdoms after a couple wars just because of, I guess, lack of cohesiveness between the members of the kingdom, the leaders, and, in the leadership circle. It's important to have that organic growth, I think, because uh,
Absolutely.
I've just seen too many kingdoms fail. Like, I don't want to bash kingdom merging, but that only works, a handful of times. To be honest, I haven't. I'm not sure I know of a situation where kingdom merge has, let's say half and half, 12 and 12 roughly, have merged together and have stayed together for more than one age and have had a successful age.
Yeah, we've definitely had a bit of experience with bringing in large groups, either from disbanding kingdoms or just players who have played together and were looking for a new home. We've been actually, in general, very successful at integrating groups of new players. But again, that really started in age 86. For those first three ages, 83, 84, 85, it was that organic growth. I think for the first two ages, we actually recruited um, using the in-game recruiting tool, and there was a point of pride for us that we didn't care who the new player was. We were going to try to teach them our system, and if they could learn, um, they would learn. Some of our best players we recruited that way, and many of those original players, like seven of them, are still a part of our active roster today. They've been with us since age 83. Um, and none of them were players in elite kingdoms. They were players who were playing in a random kingdom in the ghetto. And if things had gone differently, or me and Smiles hadn't come along and decided we wanted to do something with what we had, maybe they would have never found their way to the top of this game into an elite kingdom. They certainly wouldn't have had the experiences that they've had or learned the things they've learned. So you're absolutely right. You can't just download talent into your kingdom and expect it to be successful. Nor do you have to have this expectation that you need your players to have a resume or a pedigree. I just don't think that's true. I don't think it's appropriate. Some of the best players in this game are players that you've never heard of, and they're playing in kingdoms with no name.
Yeah, 100%. And, I run into them all the time when I'm taking intel or when I'm looking at the wars. When I look at the stats, or I really like when people send me the numbers, like all of their news data, because it really, shines some light on the individual provinces to see not just what the enemy's plan was, but see who's recovering from chains, who's taking hits, who's
Mm.
making the most hits. I mean, you can really see some attackers that shine from that data there without actually even being in
Yeah.
the war or the kingdom.
Sure, and it's absolutely true that when you do make that transition from playing as a sort of independent operator to playing in an active elite war kingdom, yeah, there's a learning curve. You have to unlearn a lot of things and you have to learn a lot of new habits. Um, but if you start with the raw material, you can do that, right? Like most players are capable of that if they're given a little bit of time and they're given support and mentoring. Um,
Now, what would you say, in your opinion, what does it take to successfully run a kingdom? I'm not talking about winning wars or going to war or having a war every year, utopian year. Just, what does it take, the bare minimum, to run a kingdom?
I think you need a leadership team that trust and believe in one another. You need a core team that are bonded together by ties of affection, and who will trust one another, and who can have disagreements and resolve them. Because Uto is like anything else. It's like any other organization, and it's not only like any other organization. It's a high pressure, high stress environment sometimes. So you need resiliency in your relationships and your ties with one another. The other thing that you need is you need a player base, and members of your kingdom who are active and dedicated and believe in what you're doing. And you
Absolutely.
need a community around them that they're a part of that's welcoming, that retains people, um, and where people feel like they're a part of something special. So one of the things that we do that I think maybe is not very common among other kingdoms is we keep very careful track of anyone who's ever played with us, and we keep them on the books. We stay in touch with them. We check in with them from time to time. Hey, you haven't played with us in a long time. How are you doing? Anytime we're looking for new players, if a new spot opens in the roster, we go first to our retired members and we say, are any of you looking at it, getting back into the game? You played with us before. Maybe things were different back then, but like don't be scared. Like you can get back into this. On our roster right now, we have two players that took off 7 or 8 ages. Last played with us like between age 83 and 86. Long before we were an elite warring, top warring kingdom, when we were still just finding our feet. Players that had left at that time, but had stayed a part of our community, who were still in our Discord server, who still checked in from time to time, and they eventually decided to make the leap and say, "Hey, I want to get back in," and we were like, "Yes, please get back on board." And I don't think that's something that you see in a lot of kingdoms. This idea that just that even after you leave the kingdom, even after you're not playing on the active roster anymore, that you're still a part of the community. We have like 25 veterans on our veterans list. They're in our Discord server. We interact with them. Um, it's being a bird means being a bird. Once you're a bird, you're a bird, and it doesn't matter if you're necessarily playing that age or not. You're part of this community.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I mean, you're right. Not too many kingdoms can say that they have a benched roster, essentially a full kingdom benched, ready to go at any time. And you certainly have more than that. I know I've been in your server for quite some time. I've seen it grow. I have some idea of who those core players were that you're speaking of that have been with you for many ages. I've seen them many times over the ages that we've interacted. And I think that's important, and there's some level of transparency there that's required, because I mean a lot of kingdoms are so hung up on hiding and not tagging or staying confidential to the point where they kick those members out of their
Mm.
discords in some cases. I mean, some just kick them out of the regular channels, so they're still in like the general open public channels, but I mean still they're a little bit disconnected. There's a little bit of paranoia there. I'm sure, even on your server, there's some rooms that not everybody who's not active, would have not necessarily have access to, like leadership
Yeah,
channels.
no, obviously, even our general operating channels aren't necessarily open to people who aren't on the active roster. There's layers of involvement and there's layers of access, and that's normal. That's just normal, operational security. For the longest time, we didn't hide. I don't think it was until age 90 that we actually made it policy to hide. That was something that we voted on. Up until then, it had been a point of pride for us. Other kingdoms hide. That's the thing they do. They're scared of, getting ambushed out of protection, or, having people gang up on them early so that they can't get that. But, our feeling was always, we're at the top of our game. This is right when we were, crown after crown, right? Like land crown, Warwind crown, three ages in a row. And then it was after that, that's 88, 89, 90. And then all of a sudden, we hit that wall where we found that, we were being ambushed early in the age. People were lying in wait for us, and we were like, okay, maybe we need to adopt that strategy of trying to conceal our location a little bit. That was a difficult transition for us. We weren't used to that, and it didn't feel right. We've done it for a while. We were not particularly good at it. We never have been. Um, like I think it's the location of warbirds is like one of the worst kept secrets every age. There's always like 10 people who seem to know right away. In part probably because we really aren't that careful. I mean we do what we can, but there's too many people who are a part of our community. There's too many people that are in our orbit, and ultimately we're just going to go out and do the best we can to find good wars and win good wars. And if people find out who we are and we don't get to hide until the end of the age. That's really not a big deal. Um, most of us we vote on it every age. At the start of every age, we that's one of the things we voted on since age 89 is are we going to hide or are we going to just like come out? And there's still a majority of the kingdom that feels like we should at least make the effort to hide our location if it means that we're going to have more opportunity to get more wars. And that's the motivation for it. We're not hiding so that we can, get an edge on anyone or have an advantage. It's about we don't want people to dodge us. Um, Warbirds has we're going on close to 50 straight war wins. We haven't lost a war since age 87.
Wow, that's quite a
It's
record.
hard it's hard to find people willing to war us, and especially if we tag up early. We've done it. That's what we found is that we have people that will just avoid us, and no one wants to fight us. So by hiding, we get some early wins, and then we can actually contribute and participate. In the warring, competition in the competition for crowning. But yeah, we're closing in on 50, our 50th straight war win. If we have a good age, we should hit it this age. If not, we'll hit it early in the next. Um, and yeah, I'm incredibly proud of that achievement, and I know that Smiles is as well, and all our entire team. It's a huge source of pride for us that you know it's been well over a year since we lost a war.
Wow, that's amazing. And I mean, yeah, I can totally understand where you're coming from that. I've been in that situation myself in several different kingdoms. Even right off the bat, that was the first thing we talked about in the kingdom when I first joined was, hey, we're definitely not tagging up because if we do, we're just gonna get blocked. Not blocked, but people are just gonna avoid us or not give us war, because they know what we're capable of. And it's I kind of you know, don't necessarily like that attitude that the community has there. Like it's almost like they're afraid of taking that dangerous or hard war. I mean, part of my goal with all of this news and giving out as much information as possible with regards to strategies and informing new players. I'm really looking to increase the player base, not only the raw numbers, but increase the skill of the player base as well. I have no problem sharing all the secrets and strategies with everybody if they're going
Mm.
to give me a good war. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily want undefeated records. I just want good wars. I want to see those tight convergences. There's the convergence for everybody that's listening out there. And
Warbirds just gave a cheer from their popcorn right now.
awesome. And that's exactly what I want to hear, guys. Now, that's the other thing too. We want everybody to be excited about the game. So it's important that we have these, special events and, as much social media as possible uh, going into this game. I think the app is going to be a huge step in the right direction.
Mm.
I'm working on a lot of stuff in the background. You guys have no idea what's coming in the future. Super exciting stuff. But without getting too far off topic, let's just
Yeah, well,
leave it
to
at that.
yeah, to jump back to to even what I was saying, and to comment on something you said, like one of your comments was, it's not in the interest of anyone for a top warring kingdom, to have some super strategy that they know of that is a big secret, just so that they can keep winning wars and keep everyone else in the dark. No, we want a competitive environment. We want as many kingdoms as possible to be competing and willing to to duke it out. I mean, that's how we got to where we are. We didn't do it by only taking wars we could win. Most of our wars, every age, we're going up, 20% net worth. We're punching up always. Um, we're taking fights that we shouldn't win, and that's how we hone our edge. Like that's how we stay strong. That's how we keep improving. Is we're always taking hard fights. And what I notice is that among the middle tier of war kingdoms, that's where this energy and that kind of approach is dominant right now, is in the middle tier of war kingdoms. That's where your future top kingdoms are coming from. Most of the top kingdoms right now, they're very, very careful about who they war, about the choices they make. It's in that punching, that punching ground, that mosh pit in the middle, where the next top elite kingdom is being formed. And I mean, as far as Warbird strategy goes, I mean, everyone knows our strategy. With a few exceptions, there's been a couple of ages where we've had like a just smash, smash, smash strategy, but they're very rare. Generally speaking, our setup and our strategy is so obvious that we're identifiable within 2 weeks of the start of the age. We win by winning the eco war. We gain an econ advantage. We keep our wages at 200% while our enemies drop theirs, so they can send useless dragons that we slay within 20 minutes. We secure unbreakables, and then we eliminate enemy threats one at a time until the enemy withdraws. We've done this successfully for 7+ ages without fail. Everyone knows that that's what we do. Everyone is welcome to use the same strategies. For whatever reason, they don't seem to.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That comes down to planning, execution, the evolution of your team. I mean, these things don't just happen overnight. I mean, I could throw up a spreadsheet right now that tells every single person in the game what to do for their province. Will they follow it? Will they think that's the right thing? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, there's everyone has their own opinions and they're entitled to that. And this is what the game is about. I mean, you can do whatever you want, you can play however you want, and you play however you think is fun. But, going back to the econ game, I mean, that is just so brutally important when it comes to war. I mean, you think about it this way. Now, I've broken this down before for my leadership and several other new players before. I mean, what does it take to run a successful army? Well, you need an econ, right? It's one thing if you just have soldiers. I mean, soldiers die and they come back as peasants and therefore replenishing your econ. However, with reduced birth rates and other such things like reduced BE and things like that stacking over time, you can't recover very easily if you don't have that strong foundation. So what I've seen actually, and I've seen in Warbirds, and I do myself, is actually keep a little bit higher of a PPA even going into the war, so that I'm able to retrain those troops faster and get those troops drafted faster, so I can keep that army flowing. And if you think about it, the econ, the peasants are the backbone of your entire province. You can't really have troops without them. And so if
Well,
you
I don't
just
know.
forsake it.
I think we draft pretty deep. I don't know if we draft as deep as everyone. We definitely draft deeper than most, at least on a lot of our core. Um, it's more about controlling enemy peons. It's more about the chastity game. It's more about targeted fireballs. I don't want to talk too much about the strategy side of the game, honestly, because eventually I'll say something asinine. It's really not my area. I have a really good leadership team, and I trust them to understand this game, that part of the game inside and out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
And everything you said,
yeah.
I mean, is completely valid. I mean, going back to Fireball Chastity strategy, that's a very classic, very used strategy that, everyone should be well aware of by now. But like you said, without going too far into strategies, how do you keep, I know we talked a little bit about it, but I know you mentioned keeping players coming back age over age. Why do players leave? Like in your experience, I mean, it's not necessarily a personal thing, but
Mm.
what would you say is the number one reason you have players taking an age off?
Because they have a new child, seems to be a common reason. A new child or a new job or promotion at work is a very common reason for someone to say, okay, I need to take some time to focus on my life. Utopia is one of those games where you find yourself up at odd hours. Um, we have almost half our kingdom have a kid under the age of 5 in their household, right? Like we've got a lot of new fathers, new mothers, young parents. Um, that's I mean that's a big reason for someone to need to take some time away from the game, right? Family comes first. Utopia is just a game. Um, I would say that's it. We've had a couple ages where we had 100% retention, where no one left, or if someone took an age off, it was just because they were like, yeah, you know what, I'll tap out and let someone who's on the bench, who's really eager to get back in it, get back in it. Um, we've had some ages like that. We've also had other ages, like the end of age 87, where we've brought in like whole new suites of players, and that either works out or it doesn't. But yeah, we've absorbed huge chunks. We've lost huge chunks at a time before, but usually not in a negative way. We had a couple players leave at the start of this most recent age, which was, it was it was different for us because that's not something that we'd had happened for a very very long time. For the most part, when people take an age off or decide that they're going to move on, it's because of a change of circumstances in their life situation.
Yeah, and that's 100%. I mean, that's a very common theme, I would say, even in my kingdoms and from everybody else that I've talked to as well. The only other thing I would just touch on is, for other kingdoms, it seems like if from time to time leadership gets burnt out, and that's often the reason that they step away from the game, or they just get so frustrated with, um, you know, maybe they're just the way they're executing their plan, the way they're
Mm.
trying to run the kingdom is just, I don't want to say it's wrong, but it just doesn't work correctly, or at least the way they intend to. And, just continuously trying to beat that dead horse can really turn you off of the game.
Yeah, that's maybe not something we've dealt with too much. We've had a couple leaders um, leave because of conflicts about the best way to organize or to communicate. Um, though to a large extent, our leadership team builds itself organically each age. Um, at the end of every age, we shut down our leadership channel, our council channel. Like when we do our elections and we do all of our voting about next age priorities and what our theme's going to be and our goals for the next age are going to be, the whole kingdom goes gray. Everyone loses their roles and permissions, and we're just a mass of birds, kind of squawking until we build it back up from the ground. And when we do that each age, whatever leadership team gets assembled on an ad hoc basis, gets assembled on the basis of, okay, who's got time right now? Who wants the responsibility? Who's eager? Who's keen? Back in the early ages, we used to rotate people through leadership. Like in our first 4 ages, 5 ages as a kingdom, every age we'd be like, okay, well, we had a really good leadership team last age, but it's time to give those guys a break, and let's bring in some new people and teach them how to lead a wave, teach them how to coordinate ops, how to use the ops planner. So we did a lot of that kind of rotating in and out, and now where we've sort of matured and evolved as a kingdom to the point where um, you start with a bare bones leadership team. In our case, it's Smiles and Missy and myself, and we start with that bare bones core, and then if we need additional support, either for ideas or for feet on the ground, we wait and see who wants to step up, who's going to just start giving orders, and are they going to be listened to? And if the answer is yes, and like this person and yes, okay, you give them a yellow tag and you put them in leadership, and you, okay, well, welcome to the show, right? There was
Uh,
a crisis moment, something was going on, someone needed to make a decision. Um, you were the one on the spot, and you made a decision, and people followed you, and it worked. So you're leadership now, and that's what we do.
I,
And then at the end of every age, everybody goes back down to the beginning, and we just start from scratch.
And I'm glad you touched on that. I mean, and I think that's really important in training your entire kingdom. A lot of people wonder how each individual province operates so well and functions so smoothly, and it's because they have that experience, that leadership experience. And that's nice to know that, you do have other members of your team that can step up and can take the reins whenever is needed. I mean, sometimes, to be brutally honest, most of the decisions that are available are going to be the correct decision. It's just about making that decision, sticking to it, and let's say making the decision before the tick, for instance, so that you can
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
put the damage in.
someone just needs to make the call. Um, and I mean, it's certainly the case, and I don't want to give you the impression that Warbirds is a kingdom of 25 war leaders that can all like take the reins and pick up the torch and run with it. Um, we are very, very much following a plan, and it's a plan that Smiles sets for us, right? Smiles is our war leader. He runs the show. The plan is his. He does the targeting. Yes, people can jump in and step in if he's not around. Um, but our success largely depends on on his muse, right? Like he has a keen ability to target that is difficult to teach. So while it's certainly the case that we would like as many of our players to be able to like jump in and take on a leadership role wherever possible, and that's always exciting when that happens, it's certainly not the case that we're it's like, oh, who wants to take this war? No, that's not how this is working. It's not like we're picking a different war leader for each war, or that we're you know um, co-collaborating on creating a plan for each war. That's not the case. Smiles has got the plan. He's the man with the plan, and we follow him.
Yeah, and and all times that's very common, and I hear that a lot. It is hard to teach that intuition that some of these higher end war leaders have. I mean, some of us can just look at the chart, just look at the kingdom page, and you know your assets, you know what your team is capable of. All of a sudden, you start eliminating half the provinces. Those are covered by ops, those are covered by our TMs and spells. These are the handful of attackers that we need to take out and brutalize. This is going to be the first guy, and why it's going to be the first guy. There's so many different things to keep in mind, so many things to remember, and not everything has a cookie cutter solution. However, you can take a cookie cutter solution and apply it to any equation and eventually come out with a favorable outcome. I mean, all it is picking the plan, sticking to it, and making sure everybody's on board with it. Um,
Yeah, that's right. Having people believing in the plan and following through with their part of it is more important than the plan being good. A bad plan, well executed, is better than a good plan with no follow through. Especially in Uto, like more so than any other game. I mean, this game is won by activity. It's won by activity, and it's won by, confident leadership, not by having the master plan. I mean, you take a look at the kinds of efficiencies that you can find in the game. Like if you tweak your build this much, you might get like an extra 3% something. And it's like, okay, all of that is lost if someone fails to log in for 2 hours, right? All that hard work of planning or having the perfect build, maybe all of the utility of that is wiped out if someone forgets to set a sit, or someone sleeps through a wave, or someone's having a bad day and just doesn't want to follow orders or gets disgruntled. Like all of these things that fall under the personnel side of the game, under the side of keeping your people happy and well rested and engaged, every single one of those factors, if it manifests, undoes any amount of careful planning.
yeah, 100%, 100%. So in your words, what would you say, or what does it mean to be a successful kingdom in Utopia?
I think being a successful kingdom in Utopia means having people want to play with you, having the people who choose to move on stay a part of your community, and in some cases return to it. Um, it means people are happy. That when you read the chat, when you browse the channels of your Discord and you're encountering the conversation, what you're seeing is you're seeing happy laughing warriors. You're seeing people who are confident and want to be there and are enjoying their time playing the game, and not people who are stressed out or fighting or on edge. Um, you know, I think that's a huge part of what it means to be a successful kingdom, because at the end of the day, none of us are getting paid for this. We're not winning a prize. My name or Smile's name, we're not. It's not going to end up on some trophy. They're not going to name a building after us. We're doing this because we love it. And if you're not enjoying it, and if it's not fun, and you're not getting something out of it, it's not worth doing. So that's what it means, I think, to be a successful Uto Kingdom, is that, the people who are a part of it are enjoying it for what it is and are proud to be there.
Yeah, 100%. And like Persian Cat said in several of the previous podcasts, we're all just here to have fun. It should be about fun. It shouldn't, like, you don't want to turn Utopia into uh, a stressful work type environment or just a stressful environment. That's not what games are meant for. If it is a stressful environment for you, maybe your approach to the game is it could be adjusted, or maybe the game's just not for you. Because some people just would prefer a different style of game, and certain things frustrate them to no end, and if they can't have it their way, um, they're just not interested in playing. I mean, I see players like that all the time. People call them selfish, or they don't want to be part of the team, or whatever. It's just, there's a lot of single player games out there, let's just put it that way. And in an FPS, you're not waiting for anybody. If anything, the game's waiting for you all the time, right? So I think they
Well,
just
and even in Utopia, you don't have to play this game, the way we play it in Warbirds. You don't have to play this game the way it's played in Elite Warring Kingdoms. You can start a kingdom, you can start a province somewhere random and just do your own thing. I think anyone can play this game according to whatever style they find, meaningful or fun for themselves. But if you are going to play at the top, if you do want to be where the action is, if you do want to be there where the excitement and the stress and the exhilaration is, um, then yeah, you've got to keep you've got to be happy to be there, and a big part of that is on the monarch and is on the leadership team to make people to make the experience as positive as possible.
100%. I mean, and it's just like gambling in the sense where, you're there to have a good time. You're kind of stressed, but it's an exciting, like fear type stress that you're like so excited that you could win, but you know you could lose, but it doesn't matter because you're having so much fun that losing is just like an afterthought, and that's what all games should be like. You shouldn't be stressed that if you don't win, it's not the end of the world. It's you take what you learn from that loss or whatever the situation is and move on. I mean, you can always apply it to the next thing. I mean, that's the beauty of Utopia. It's just an ongoing game, ongoing learning experience, just like life.
Yeah, and a big part of the exhilaration, and I know for me personally, is seeing a well-oiled machine in action. When you see everyone and they're coordinating organically, not they're not it's they're just everyone's stepping up and doing what comes naturally to them, and you see people communicating and following each other's advice and taking orders from one another, and there's no direction to it. It's just happening, and everyone's flowing, and you can feel that flow. You can feel that sense of everyone's got their job to do, and they just instinctively know what it is, and they jump to it. um, it's yeah, that's it's extremely exhilarating, because while you're observing it, intellectually you understand that these are people who are you know thousands of miles away from each other, separated by continents, 25 of them scattered around the world, um, you know who who in any other circumstances wouldn't know each other from Adam, and yet here they are operating together in an incredibly coordinated and organized way, um, you know, as though they'd lived together their whole lives, and understood the pitch of each other's voices, and we're sailing a ship together. It's it's really cool what games like Utopia can bring out of people and what they can demonstrate to people that they're capable of.
Yeah, and it's important. And I had a talk with David this morning about the incorporation of generals as being a mini game, to help bring kingdoms closer together. We talked about playing it on your, in between ticks or in between gen or on the freeze time. I mean, I picked it up myself recently, and the speed at which you could just have a quick pickup game. I mean, there's nothing like it, and that was the exciting part about it for me. I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. It took me a couple rounds to figure out how to even use the mouse properly and click and move the guy around. But at the end of the day, I think that would be a great team building experience. And it's one of those games that just happens so fast. It's over before you know what happened. But that's kind of the fun of it. It's just so exciting and exhilarating. And even when you don't know what's going on, so much is happening. You're just like, oh my God, I want to learn how to do this. And I think Utopia can really benefit from things like that. So hopefully, people will start to see that Genesis is kind of like like a mini game inside of the game, just like all those RPGs or MMOs that are out there right now that have like these little mini games off to the side that you can play. It's usually gambling or cards or things like that, but there's still lots of fun to play, even though it's not the actual game. So before we go too far off topic about mini games and generals, would you say, when we go back to talking about successful kingdoms, are crowns really everything? Like, does that define a successful kingdom? I mean, in the server's eyes, maybe that is what defines a successful kingdom because we're counting the crowns. But I mean, from a leadership standpoint, do you think it really matters if you get crowns age over age, or you miss a couple ages with crowns? Like, is that going to make or break your kingdom?
No, not at all. I think I think if you're a war leader and you're the one who's planning the age and choosing the setup and executing the wars, I think a crown, especially a Warwind crown for a war leader, or a land crown for like a monarch of a growth kingdom. I think, yeah, I think those can be very personally valuable. as motivation to keep putting in the effort that you put in. Um, I don't know about every kingdom. I know that crowns are not as important to us as they might have been. Um, we were eager to get a crown before we had one, and then we won three in a row. And after that, it was kind of like we felt like the next stage we should have won one, and we felt like we lost on a technicality or that there was some unfair play. And then the next stage, it was sort of the same thing where we felt like we were hosed out of what should have belonged to us. Um, and at that point, we just kind of stopped caring. We got, well, war win crown doesn't matter because it's too easy to juke the stats, right? Like you can just war, you can just find a fake war, or you can get a bunch of chintzy wins against non-competitive kingdoms and come out on top. So certainly, we've given up caring about war win crowns. We're undefeated, like I said, in 7 ages. If someone wants to take our crown, they can beat us. As far as I'm concerned, we're still wearing it. Um, I think land crown matters if that's what you're playing for. I think it's a statement to as a kingdom, um, like a Maritile. I used to do, consistently win land crown, whereas other kingdoms have done in the past. I think that's a statement of competence and of organization, and I think that's valuable in and of itself because it's something that um, you can't cheat your way into. You have to, you're the one exploring the acres. You're the one conquering the land. You're the one defending your gains. Um, we most recently won Honor Crown. We've won Honor Crown a couple times, and I think there's some interest. We have some interest in seeing how we do on the honor rankings, because um, I think we're starting to feel more and more that Honor Crown actually is a better representation of a kingdom's fighting prowess than Warwind Crown is. Because in order to get Warwind Crown, you just have to win wars, and it doesn't matter against who against. Whereas in order to get Honor Crown, you need to be fighting people who have honor, which means you're fighting other top people. So
Generally,
yeah,
that's the case. Yeah.
we keep an eye on Honor Crown, and we know that if we're doing well on the honor rankings, it means A, that we're being successful in our engagements, and also it means B, that we're actually fighting people that matter, and we're not taking easy targets.
Yeah.
But as far as measures for success go, um, you know, crowns is less important to us than our main goal. Our main goal every age, for a long time has been, let's get as many wars as possible because we love fighting wars. We love that exhilaration. We love that rush. We love that stress. We like it when we're working together towards a goal. We like wars. We like fighting wars. We like winning wars, and we want to fight and win as many wars as we possibly can in an age. So that's always our age goal, and that's the measure of success for us. We look when we're looking at back at ages and going, this was a good age, this was a bad age. We're not usually thinking about where we ended up in the rankings or if we got a crown or not. We're thinking about that's an age where we got 8 wars and that was amazing, versus this is an age where we only got 4 wars and it sucked and it was boring.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a lot of warring kingdoms, I think, are kind of going in the same direction. I certainly know I am. I mean, when I'm on the war path, that's all I want. I want one war every utopian year, or 1.5 years, let's say, might be more reasonable with the 4-day ceasefire that we currently have. But that's certainly what I'm looking for as well, and lots of other warring kingdoms are looking for that as well. So tell me more about the Warbird server. I mean, it's not just a Utopia kingdom. That's like a community, right? Like, because you guys do other games and play other games and stuff there. How important would you say, that aspect is? Because I mean, we talked about player retention and things like that, but I know for a long time you've been trying to create your server as being like a gaming community, not just a Utopia Kingdom server. Do you think other kingdoms would benefit from something like that?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the nature of your kingdom and your organizational capacity. Our public channels are, they're not super active. It's not like we've got a nightlife in there. Um, I think there was maybe one time when I first started going where, the idea I had in my head was I'm going to make this the new Muga, right? Like this is going to be the place people come to like talk about strategy and, hang out. That certainly is never happened and probably isn't likely to happen. Um, but yeah, I've had a couple goals for our server, which is to expand the interests of people within the server to include other games, to have it be a hub for more than one kind of interest or activity, to make the server community as a whole about more than just Utopia. The other thing that we've actively been trying to do for a long time is to get a second kingdom made up of our veterans and people who have always wanted to play with us, but we haven't had a spot on the roster for them. But maybe they've been waiting in the wings for a while. Um,
Yeah, I know
this
we
is
talked about that briefly. Tell me more about that second kingdom.
Yeah, so this is something that we actually we actually pulled off. We weren't even sure if it was possible at first. I had to have some conversations with David C. We had to do some tests, and I don't think anyone had ever done this before because when we first brought up the idea or the possibility, to moderators, the first comment we got, I don't remember who from, was basically, "Yeah, that won't work. You can't do that." One person told us it couldn't be done because it was, you know, technically impossible, like it wouldn't work with Monk. Another person told us, it would be a violation of the rules. And then I finally went to the source and asked David, I'm like, can we just like have two kingdoms in one server? Like, is that something we can do? And he said, I don't see why not. So we tested it by having an already existing kingdom um, literally set themselves up in a separate kind of contained area of our server, with its own permissions and its own roles and its own administrators and moderators, and seeing if we could add Utopia bot and have it run. We did it first in Genesis actually, um, and it worked, and it seemed to work fine. Turns out that Utopia bot can manage more than one kingdom in the same server. We weren't sure if that was the case, but it is. So for 2 ages, we had a second kingdom, Price's Kingdom of Colors, in our server with us, and that was a really good learning experience. It didn't last in the end. They ended up moving on and going back to their old server. But it taught us a lot about what's involved in having two kingdoms in the same server and sort of two communities coexisting and trying to set common standards for discourse and behavior. Yeah, it was a really good learning experience. It didn't, like I said, it didn't work out, but it's something that we're going to try to do again because I think at this point we have enough players and enough people who want to be a part of Warbirds that we can field a second server or a
That,
second kingdom. Sorry.
and that's pretty awesome. I mean, as long as those two kingdoms don't go teaming up on individual other kingdoms, I mean, that's the only
No, and I mean,
negative I
there's
see
there's
there.
no interest. There's no interest in that. The idea would be it's almost that we're trying to train leaders. We're trying to we want our players to eventually, especially the ones who have leadership potential, who have charisma, we want them to go out and start their own warring kingdoms and get good and come kick our ass. Like that's what we want. And if we have an opportunity to kind of nurture that in our own server, that I mean that would be amazing. There'd be no question. It's like we don't want a kingdom of lackeys to do our bidding. We want a kingdom that's like, okay, we know we're the B team, but we're gonna show the Warbirds kingdom that we're just as good as them, and we're gonna stick it to them. Which is exactly why when we did have the two kingdoms, they operated completely independently, and there was even a little bit of rivalry and a little bit of like good natured, um, we'll show you that we're not here as your ancillary, that we're just as good as you, and we're we're equal partners in this, and we're going to prove it to you.
That's
And
awesome.
that's what we'd want to create is something like that, not just like a feeder kingdom or like a minor league team. It would be more about um, about having a community that's strong enough and vibrant enough that you can have two independent kingdoms in there.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I mean, I think if everyone could field something like that, that would be a pretty big accomplishment, I think, for the game. Especially with how few players we have. I mean, definitely more players coming back to the game, whether they have to, run it the way you're describing, if that's the way it needs to be done. I'd rather get those players in there at all costs. And I love the concept of, evolving your players to be leaders, or, taking those who want to be leaders and giving them the foundation and the tools and the experience they need to succeed, and then in hopes that they'll go out on their own, because certainly that's what I'm hoping for. I mean, I've spent many ages trying to train leaders and trying to inform them as to what to do without directly telling them what to do, always leaving them with open solutions so that they can come up with it for themselves, but still providing all the tools and foundations required to get there. I
Yeah,
mean, everyone always has cold feet, but I mean, that's the process of learning something new. You
that's
just
right.
gotta grab it by the horns and just run with it.
I think this is the healthy evolution of a kingdom as well. Like when we first started to have success, and there's kingdoms are always breaking apart, and leaders are, tapping out and going, okay, I just need to go be a bird somewhere. Like I don't feel like running a show anymore. It's exhausting. And so, a lot of those people would find their way to us. And so there was a good couple of ages there where, I felt like we were accumulating, former monarchs and, people who had led kingdoms but just needed some time off and wanted to be a part of a community like ours, where they didn't have to do all this heavy lifting, but they could be, competing in something that mattered. Um, and so, we were bringing more and more players in. I don't want to say a number, but like at one point, a healthy portion of our roster were, former monarchs of kingdoms. Um, Now I feel like we've turned we've turned over to the point where um, our players, the ones who now decide to move on, are out there in the community, creating their own kingdoms and trying to recreate, the magic that they saw in WARBIRDS. So we've got, two different players that played with us that are, on our veterans bench right now that are out there monarching kingdoms. I think more than two actually. And, as more and more of our players reach that level of experience and confidence, where they're like, okay, you know what, I can do this. I can make a version of this that makes sense for me, and that I can kind of tailor make to my style of leadership. um, yeah, I want to see them go out and do that. I don't want people to feel like that they're tied to the kingdom forever, and that they can't go out and spread their wings. I want them to do that when they feel they're ready.
Yeah, and 100%. I think we need to have those foundations and those kingdoms in place for when the servers do start swelling up with new players as we continue to roll out technology and upgrades to the game itself. Again, I'm not going to lead too much into that
Hmm.
area, but like I
No, yeah,
said,
you're
I've got a
absolutely you're
lot of
absolutely
stuff
right
in the
though. Yeah,
works.
yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to see an increase in Utopia's player base in the future. I don't know about the details of it, but I feel like it'll happen. And yeah, when that time comes, what there's going to be a demand for above all else is competent leaders who can lead kingdoms and create them. And yeah, the more people like that we have floating around, um, that I mean, that's the better, because that's going to improve player retention for the game.
Absolutely, and I hope that when the server population does explode or get bigger, that some of the more veteran or rather elite kingdoms are less fearful of tagging for fear of losing wars. I want everyone. It would be nice if everyone could just come out straight out of the gate with their tags up, and everyone who half of the people who consider the war don't even think twice about the name on the tag. So what if it says Warbirds? I got 25 players. They got 25 players. Let's do this.
Yeah, that would be great. No one needs to hide. You know, uh, this is this is all about proving what you've got. Go out there, and do it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Redbird. Do you have any final comments or words for the community?
Um, Only that I love this game and I'm really proud to be a part of it. And a big thank you to the members of my kingdom who have supported me and have supported each other for the last 11 ages. And we're going to keep doing what we do. And to every other kingdom out there that wants that maybe wants to break into the and feel like they're at the top and that they're competing amongst the best, there's an easy solution, and that is you go out and you punch up. Find a kingdom bigger than you, find a kingdom scarier than you, find a kingdom with a pedigree, and wave them. Because you know what? That's how you learn and that's how you get better. And that's how the game evolves.
Now, since we have some live people here listening to this conversation, I'm just going to open up the floor for a few minutes. Anyone interested in, want to ask a question, or you just have a comment, or you want to say something, now would be the time. You can actually, I believe there's an option you can kind of raise your hand to request to speak, and I'm able to grant that. And you just press this, what is it, Redbird, like a green little box on the screen that you got to press to speak, or what was it again?
It was like a little banner at the top of the page, kind of like a green fall down banner.
Cool, cool. Yeah, so does anybody currently in the audience have any questions for myself or Redbird at this time? If not, thank you guys, everyone, for showing up, and Redbird for being my guest. And we'll get this podcast finished up. I don't know what time it is for you guys, but it's almost midnight, and I'm supposed to wake up and do this work thing for 20 hours tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. So, um, you know, not that I need sleep or anything, because, who needs sleep anyway? I'd rather be up all night playing Utopia. Woo! All right. So it doesn't seem like we have anyone that wants to say anything or has any questions at this time. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you Redbird for joining me for this discussion. Special thanks to Joe Hill and Disciple who are in the room right now, who have boosted the Muga server and made this high level of voice communication possible. I mean, we recently got to level 3, and because of that, we have a very high rate of voice data transfer. So there are almost virtually no clicks or pops. We have 100% voice connection throughout pretty much the entire show. So definitely look forward to more of these casts in the future, and I hope we can engage more of the community. I hope everyone comes into the room and asks questions, and takes care of what we want to do. It looks like we do have someone wanting to say something. Smiles, I did just give you the invite to speak. If you do navigate to the top of your screen, you should be able to um, join us here in the speaking side of the room. Um, was it just a bar that went across the top, Redbird, or
Yeah, that's right.
so hopefully Smiles is able to find that there, because I did give him the ability, so we just need him to confirm that, and he can ask his questions. Hopefully it works. I'm not sure what this whole stage thing is a little bit new to me as well. So
There he is.
there we go.
Now, would you say Warbirds is the best kingdom in the entire history of Utopia, or just currently?
I haven't been around long enough to say. I know there's a whole age that existed long before my time, and I've heard some really epic stories about, back in the day, and about the dominance of certain kingdoms and alliances back when this game had a player base 10 times the size of what it does currently. Um, you know, i at a time in the game's evolution when it's a lot smaller than it used to be and a lot more niche. I don't think that anyone can claim the title of being the best of anything in history. There's just too much history to this game. This game's been around a long time and has a very rich history of accomplishment.
Looks like Joe Hill has a question as well. Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, is my mic working?
Yes,
Absolutely.
Ah, thank you, thank you. I have actually, I think, I started off playing Utopia back in the late 90s, the first ages of Utopia when Patel owned Utopia. We started off, my youth worker uh, introduced me to this game. So then more people around me started to play this. So I hope people can get friends to play with you, because when you have friends, it's more fun to play Utopia. So I hope more people do that. Introduce the game to their friend. It will
Yeah,
be more fun, you know.
100%. And I think, what my friend's blocker is right now is the visual aspect or lack thereof of the game and lack of an app. I think once the app is launched, I'll be able to bring at least, 15 or 20 more people into the game myself.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game that's been around for pretty long time. Where I know, the first ages changed. So people, either way, like Redbird said, and people have, you know, get kids and so on. It happens, but you can get friends to play around with you, introduce game and so on. It's become fun, but most of the people that I know, stop playing more because of the game change, and yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's something we're trying to bring back the player base, and hopefully through all of the initiatives that we currently have going on and some that haven't even started yet, we will once again make Utopia great again. Thanks so much, Joe Hill. Did you have any other comments or questions for us?
No, no, I don't. Thank you very
Wonderful.
much.
Thanks for joining, Joe Hill. And thank you again for boosting the Muga server. We definitely appreciate it. Is there anyone else in the audience at this time that has any comments or questions or just wants a moment to say something? Just raise your hand and I can grant you permission to speak. I'll leave the floor open for another couple minutes to see if anyone has anything to say. But in the meantime, thank you so much, everyone. I'm definitely going to be really busy tomorrow, so don't expect any warcasts or anything going on. I do have some content to release on the forums and on the news site as well. Be sure to send me those banners, Tom banners, Kingdom banners. I'm going to repost them on the Utopia News um, announcements page, just to get that awareness out there that these kingdoms are around. And these are some awesome banners that are constantly lost to the ages when the game restarts. So it's kind of nice to have some kind of history of all the good stuff that's always been there. Go ahead, Merlin. I just gave you permission to talk there. Welcome, Merlin.
Hey guys, thanks for the invite. Redbird, I'm in the kingdom that you just ward, and I wanted to know if you would possibly give us some feedback, some things that we did well, some things that you thought we could do better, and I just wanted to say, Wind, I really appreciate what you're doing for the community. The podcast is great, and I hope that you keep it going.
Thanks so much, Merlin.
Um, I mean, thank you for your question, Merlin. I really appreciate that. What I'm going to suggest is that you reach out to Smiles, who's our war leader, and who can give you a really good synopsis of the war and what went well from his perspective. And I'm sure that he'll have a lot of advice for you. Um, from my very very limited strategic perspective, I would say that it was our perception that you had a very, very strong start. And for the first 24 hours of the war, we thought we were losing and we were a little bit nervous. And then there was a certain point where things tipped and we realized we'd won. You tanked Topaz for a fairly long time. And I think that was a strategic mistake. And you let us get the upper hand in the peon battle. And that's how we win wars. If you're gonna war against warbirds, you need to know how we fight, and that's what we do. We try to win that econ battle. So, um, more heavy economic suppression. I know my province, for example, I wasn't a chain target, and yet I had the same mystic aura that I cast at the beginning of the war up for about the first 24 hours. So, nobody cast anything on me, and I definitely had some peons that I didn't deserve to have by the end of the war.
Yeah, 100%. So based on that comment there, Merlin, it sounds like, there's a little bit of op mitigation that could have been done in terms of, a few more ops or spells could have been put out towards the Warbirds Kingdom. Also, tanking, just before we go to the Dragon, out of protection wars are very different than the rest of the wars that you're going to experience throughout the age. I mean, BE and peasant, population is so important. Not only that, but all kingdom provinces marching, if possible, is also very important in these out of protection wars. Every leg up, every inch you can get is exactly what you need. And unfortunately, when it comes to those topaz dragons, sitting on one of those and an out of protection, um, that's not something
Yeah,
you want to do.
there was definitely one point at which peons were more or less even, and you had about a 10,000 unit lead. but your average BE was 30 points lower than ours, and we knew
Oof.
that that was going to be fatal for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd
that's
say that when we lost the Pez lead, that's when leadership kind of saw the tide was turning. Our build was definitely more on the punchy side than y'all's were, and so we were happy with the results early. But I definitely saw, the choices that y'all made with race and the choices that y'all made going forward were helping you to beat us in the econ war, and so that war of attrition going forward was definitely going to be what helped y'all going forward. And I think that's what helped our leadership determine that getting out while we could was the best bet. But
Yeah,
yeah, it was a great war, and we had a lot of fun, and I really appreciate you
cheers. I'm
guys
glad.
doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. And yeah, that hard hitting, just punching hard strategy. We've done that a few ages, um, and it's worked for us. It's not our usual way of playing, but it's definitely a valid strategy. I've seen some kingdoms just absolutely dominate with it, and there's some kingdoms that are renowned for dominating almost exclusively with that strategy. But yeah, your punches got to land hard. They've got to land really hard. When you hit a bird, you've got to break it.
That's good advice. I
yeah.
appreciate you letting me on, Lynn.
Yeah, no problem, Merlin. Anytime. Be sure to check us out in future podcasts, and be sure to send me any data you guys have with regards to your war, or wars going forward, so I can share it on the podcast. I'm sure everyone wants to see these epic wars in progress. And if you gave Warbirds that good of a fight that they were worried they were sweating, Merlin, your kingdom might be one to watch out for as this age progresses.
That's good news because we are a brand new kingdom this age that just formed from two or three others. So we're looking forward to being in these fights for some times to come.
Best of luck out there.
Thanks,
Awesome.
guys.
Can't wait to see how the age goes. Thanks so much, Merlin. Is there anybody else that has any questions or just wants a moment on the stage just to say something? If not, as I said, we will go ahead and wrap up the podcast. I'll give the floor another couple of minutes in case someone does want to raise their hand and ask a question. Don't be shy. I don't bite. But yeah, anyway, thanks so much, Redbird. I do enjoy these conversations. I know we've had a lot involved, and it was nice having the guests join the show. This is something I've been talking to David about for some time. We were kind of mulling over how we could get, tons of participants in the audience, and luck have it, Discord just came out with this stages thing right around the time that I was, starting this news initiative to get more of these live discussions going, and it worked out perfectly for us. That, and again, special thanks to everyone, including myself, who are boosting the server right now. We definitely appreciate it. So thank you for your continued support, and thank you everyone for joining tonight. It doesn't look like anyone has any more questions at this time. Thank you, Redbird, and again,